Mechagodzilla is one of the most iconic villains in movie history, and almost nobody realizes there are over a dozen completely different versions of it. From alien-controlled imposters, to cyborgs built on actual monster skeletons, to a version that literally became an entire city. Today I'm breaking down every single Mechagodzilla ever created, starting with the one that kicked it all off back in 1974, Showa Mechagodzilla. The original Mechagodzilla wasn't built by humans, it was built by aliens from a place called the Black Hole Planet 3, which is exactly as ridiculous as it sounds. They needed a weapon that could take down Godzilla, so they built a perfect mechanical replica, slapped a fake skin over it, and sent it out disguised as the real thing, a 50-meter tall Trojan horse made of alien metal. Here's the thing, this version had zero organic components, no neural links, no AI, no human pilot, fully remote controlled by aliens operating it like the universe's most expensive RC car. The weaponry was straightforward, finger missiles, I-beams, knee missiles, toe missiles. If the thing had a joint, it could shoot something out of it. No subtlety whatsoever, and that's exactly why fans still love it. This is the most analog Mechagodzilla ever built. No hybrid consciousness, no existential horror, just aliens who looked at Godzilla and said we can build one of those, but angrier. It set the blueprint that every future version would either evolve from or react against. But the aliens weren't done, because when your first giant robot gets destroyed, the obvious move is to build another one. Mechagodzilla 2. Everyone remembers the original Mechagodzilla. Nobody remembers the sequel that actually invented the concept every future version would steal. Terror of Mechagodzilla dropped in 1975 as the Showa series finale, and it brought back the alien weapon in a completely new form. This time, human scientist Dr. Mifune worked alongside the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens to rebuild the machine using salvaged components from the destroyed original. So right out of the gate, you've got the first human-alien collaboration in the franchise. Earth science meets alien engineering, which is, you know, not ideal from a chain of command perspective. The upgrades were significant. 40,000 tons of rebuilt killing machine, now packing finger missiles, a reinforced space titanium frame, and improved I-beam lasers. Tougher, meaner, and objectively better than the original in every measurable way. But here's the thing nobody talks about. This version introduced the first biological control interface, Dr. Mifune's daughter Katsura was surgically implanted with a cybernetic controller that linked her to both Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus simultaneously. Her consciousness became the bridge between alien machine and living monster. That mechanic, the blurred line between human operator and weapon, became the DNA of every single Mechagodzilla that followed. Kiryu's ghost in the machine, the monster versus Ghidorah consciousness bleed. All of it traces back to this overlooked 1975 sequel that most fans skip entirely. But if you think a forgotten film sequel is obscure, wait until you hear about the Mechagodzilla that made its name in a Japanese gambling machine. Pachinko Mechagodzilla. Not every Mechagodzilla earned its reputation on the big screen. Some earned it in a Japanese gambling parlor, surrounded by cigarette smoke and flashing lights, which is honestly a more intimidating battlefield than most Toho films have ever produced. In the 1990s, Toho Corporation released a Godzilla-themed pachinko machine, and sitting right at the top as the final boss and jackpot animation was a brand new Mechagodzilla that nobody in the West has ever heard of. Visually, it pulls straight from the Showa era. Classic silver plating, combination laser cannons, the whole retro package. There's even a visible control cabin in the animation sequences, implying some poor human is sitting inside this thing while tiny steel balls determine its fate. Estimated height based on sprite scaling puts it around 50 to 55 meters, which is respectable for a robot whose entire career took place on a screen the size of a microwave. Here's the thing though, this version of Mechagodzilla likely generated more revenue than several actual Godzilla films. Pachinko was an absolute monster industry in 1990s Japan, and Godzilla branded machines were enormously popular. Zero narrative significance, zero character development, maximum economic impact. So the most financially successful Mechagodzilla of all time never fought Godzilla, never had a storyline, and never left a building full of slot machines. I don't know what to tell you, but if a Mechagodzilla that only exists inside a gambling machine sounds strange, wait until you see one that only exists inside a virtual reality simulation. Ready Player One Mechagodzilla. So here's a fun philosophical question for you. Can a Mechagodzilla truly count as a Mechagodzilla if it doesn't actually exist within its own fictional universe? Because that's exactly what Steven Spielberg handed us in 2018. Ready Player One features a Mechagodzilla that lives entirely inside the Oasis, a virtual reality simulation. It has zero physical form, no metal, no wiring, no No pilot seat bolted into a cockpit. It's a digital avatar stomping around inside a video game inside a movie. That's 3 layers of fiction deep for anyone keeping score. And because it's unbound by anything resembling real physics, this version goes absolutely nuts with the loadout. Plasma cannons, rotary cannons, energy shields that regenerate, basically whatever the developers felt like coding in that afternoon. The pilot is Nolan Sorrento, the movie's corporate villain, controlling it from his haptic rig. The worst thing that happens if Mechagodzilla gets destroyed is his avatar gets deleted and he has to log back in, which is, not exactly high stakes. The whole appearance lasts about as long as a commercial break during the final Oasis battle sequence, sandwiched between a dozen other licensed cameos. Here's the thing, the Godzilla community has been arguing about this one since the movie dropped, and the debate isn't really about the mech itself. It's about whether a licensed Easter egg cameo in someone else's movie deserves a seat at the table. Most fans say no. Some say any official appearance counts. Nobody's winning that argument anytime soon, but at least this Mechagodzilla exists in some form of media you can actually watch, unlike the next one on our list, Manga Heisei Mechagodzilla. Most people have never even heard of this one, and honestly, that's a crime. Before the 1993 film gave us the Heisei Mechagodzilla we all know, manga artist Kazuhisa Iwata was already running his own version in a serialized Godzilla manga from 1991 to 1992, and his take solved problems the movies never even thought to address. The origin got a full rewrite. Instead of a straightforward UN construction project, this Mechagodzilla was a joint venture between humans and aliens. It stood 58 meters tall and featured biological armor plating made from crystallized Godzilla scales. So already we're dealing with a machine that's part monster, which is, not ideal if you're the guy maintaining it. But here's the real hook. This version carried a genetic disruptor cannon, not a beam that hits harder, not a missile that explodes bigger, a weapon specifically designed to shut down Godzilla's regenerative abilities. Instead of trying to out-damage a creature that heals from everything, someone finally said, what if we just turn the healing off? Genuinely brilliant. Never made it into a single film. The pilot system was equally dark. 5 JSDF operatives shared neural link duties in rotating 2-hour shifts. Why? Because the link caused psychological burnout. The manga quietly implied that plugging your brain into a giant robot was slowly destroying the people inside it. No film version ever went that far. The serialization ended before it was finished, so half the technical details either contradict each other or simply don't exist. Limited English translations mean most of this stays buried in collector circles. But if you think an incomplete manga version is obscure, wait until you see what the finished film version actually brought to the table. Heisei Super Mechagodzilla. By 1993, humanity finally got its hands on the controls. No alien puppet masters, no interdimensional nonsense. Just the JSDF, the United Nations, and a whole lot of recovered alien technology they probably shouldn't have been messing with. The result was the Heisei Super Mechagodzilla from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, and it stood 120 meters tall. That's nearly double the height of the original Showa version. Growth spurt of the century. But here's the thing. The super in the name isn't just marketing. It refers to a completely separate vehicle called the Garuda, a fighter aircraft that physically docks onto Mechagodzilla's back mid-combat to form the combined Super Mechagodzilla configuration. 2 machines becoming one, which sounds incredible on paper and looked even better on screen. The catch? It required a full crew working in perfect sync. The primary operators controlled Mechagodzilla from the main cockpit through standard manual piloting systems, while a second pilot flew the Garuda independently. They had to coordinate the merge in real time, while fighting Godzilla. No pressure. This is the version that proved Mechagodzilla could be more than just a single robot punching things. It was a system, a coordinated military operation with moving parts that had to click together, or the whole thing fell apart. Fans still argue over whether the Garuda combination was genuine combat innovation or just a flashy gimmick that looked cool in the trailer. Honestly, both can be true. Either way, it's widely considered the aesthetic peak of the Heisei era. Clean design, satisfying transformation, real human stakes in the cockpit. But if you think bolting a jet onto a robot's back was ambitious, wait until you meet the Mechagodzilla built around an actual skeleton, Kiryu. Most Mechagodzillas are machines built to fight a monster. Kiryu is a machine built from one, and that distinction changes everything about what it means to sit in the pilot's chair. In 2002, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla introduced what might be the most unsettling amazing concept in the entire franchise. The Japanese Self-Defense Force recovered the fossilized skeleton of the original 1954 Godzilla and decided, hey, let's build a weapon around it. Not inspired by it, not modeled after it. They literally grafted mechanical components directly onto real monster bones. The organic skeleton serves as the structural framework. Every servo, every weapon system, every piece of armor is bolted onto the remains of a dead god. Kiryu stands 60 meters tall, packing an absolute zero cannon capable of hitting negative 273 degrees Celsius, Maser cannons, and sonar echolocation systems. Impressive stuff. But the weapons aren't the story here. The story is Akane Yashiro. She's a JSDF officer strapped into a neural interface chair that connects her directly to Kiryu's systems. First genuinely complex female mecha pilot in the franchise, and they gave her arguably the worst job in fictional military history. Because that 1954 skeleton, it still has residual nervous system impulses. The thing retains cellular memory, which means mid-combat, with zero warning, the dead Godzilla's ghost can wake up and send Kiryu into a violent berserker episode. You're not fighting the enemy at that point, you're fighting your own machine. You're physically wrestling control away from something that shouldn't be conscious anymore, but apparently didn't get the memo. The fandom has never settled the question of whether Kiryu is actually alive. Nobody can. And honestly, that's what makes it perfect. But Kiryu's story doesn't end here, because someone looked at this haunted skeleton robot and said, let's upgrade it, modified Kiryu. So the military looked at Kiryu, a machine that literally went berserk because the dead monster inside it woke up, and thought, yeah, let's make it stronger, which is, you know, not ideal. Godzilla. Tokyo SOS brought back the Kiryu platform in 2003 with a full suite of upgrades. The skeleton of the 1954 Godzilla was still the foundation, because apparently nobody learned anything from the first movie. The frame stayed at 60 meters, but the weapon's loadout got a complete overhaul. The Absolute Zero cannon was ripped out entirely and replaced with a triple hyper Maser cannon, because the only thing scarier than a weapon that hits Absolute Zero is 3 Maser beams firing at once. But here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. They swapped out the pilot. Akane Yashiro, the woman who'd wrestled control back from a possessed mech, was gone. Her replacement? Kyosuke Akiba. They handed the keys to a walking ghost story to a completely different person and said, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. So now you've got a new pilot with zero experience fighting the dead Godzilla's will, sitting inside a machine that already proved it could ignore human commands entirely. Cool. That's a normal workplace dynamic. And here's the kicker. This entire upgrade happened while Mothra, a literal divine being, was actively asking humanity to return the skeleton to the sea. The military's response was to strap more guns to the corpse. Every improvement made Kiryu more effective in combat and more morally indefensible as a concept. They turned a burial request into a weapons platform, but if you think building a monster out of bones and guilt is ethically messy, wait until you see what Apex Cybernetics did with a severed alien head. Monsterverse Mechagodzilla, Apex Cybernetics looked at a severed alien dragon head and thought, yeah, let's build a robot around that, which is, you know, not ideal. The Monsterverse Mechagodzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong is a completely different beast from anything that came before it. Standing at roughly 122 meters tall, this thing is massive, but it's built lean. Apex didn't want a lumbering tank. They wanted something fast, something agile, something that could actually keep up with a Titan in close combat. The whole design philosophy shifted from bigger is better to bigger and meaner wins fights. But here's where it gets dark. The entire machine runs on a recovered Ghidorah skull as its central AI processor, not a computer modeled after Ghidorah, the actual skull, with fragments of Ghidorah's consciousness still rattling around inside it. Ren Serizawa had to synchronize his mind with that thing through a dual neural link system, sitting in constant psychic feedback with the remnants of an alien intelligence that once tried to terraform the planet. He thought he was piloting a weapon. Ghidorah was piloting him. The whole setup had a hard ceiling of roughly 30 minutes before neural destabilization kicked in, which sounds like a safety feature until you realize the Ghidorah remnant didn't care about operational windows. It was already overriding human control, pushing its own agenda through the machine like a parasite wearing a suit. The original 1974 Mechagodzilla disguised itself as Godzilla to fool humanity. This one disguised itself as a human weapon to fool the people building it. Same trick, inverted. A Trojan horse made of titanium and alien bone. And somehow the next version manages to be even stranger. Because the anime trilogy didn't just build a Mechagodzilla, it built something that stopped being a robot entirely. Anime trilogy. Mechagodzilla. Every Mechagodzilla up to this point was built by someone with a plan. Aliens wanted to conquer Earth. Humans wanted to kill Godzilla. There was always a pilot, always a purpose, always a hand on the controls. The anime trilogy threw all of that out the window and asked a simple question. What happens when Mechagodzilla has 20,000 years to figure things out on its own? The answer is nothing good. This version appeared across the Godzilla anime trilogy from 2017 to 2018, spanning Planet of the Monsters, City on the Edge of Battle, and The Planet Eater. It was originally constructed by human scientists working alongside the Belusaludo, a technologically advanced alien race, using their signature nanometal technology. And when I say originally constructed, I mean 20,000 years before the main events of the films. That's not a typo. This machine has been sitting on Earth, alone, evolving for 20 millennia, longer than human civilization has existed. By the time anyone finds it again, it's expanded into an entire city-sized complex of nanometal, with semi-autonomous drone units operating throughout its structure. This thing is less a robot and more an ecosystem. It has gravity manipulation, pulse cannons, full-spectrum electromagnetic warfare capabilities. But here's the kicker. It doesn't need you. The AI governs itself completely. Human survivors could inhabit its interior and offer advisory input. Advisory: you're not piloting Mechagodzilla, you're making suggestions to it, like leaving a comment on its YouTube channel. And then there's the Godzilla cell fusion. Over those 20,000 years, the machine partially merged with Godzilla's regenerating cells, creating a hybrid organism that actively improved itself through combat damage. Hit it, and it gets better, which is, not ideal. This is the version where Mechagodzilla stopped needing humanity entirely, but what it became next is somehow even worse. Mechagodzilla City. So the anime trilogy Mechagodzilla we just covered, it failed, got buried before it could even throw a punch, and then it did something nobody expected. It kept growing. For 20,000 years, Mechagodzilla's nanometal spread underground, absorbing everything it touched, replicating, expanding, and slowly consuming an entire region of the planet. By the time humanity's descendants stumble back onto Earth, there's no robot waiting for them. There's a city, a living, sprawling, self-sustaining weapons platform stretching 14 kilometers across the landscape like a metallic fungus. Every system inside it is still locked onto a single objective: kill Godzilla. But here's where it gets deeply uncomfortable. Mechagodzilla City isn't just growing outward, it's assimilating everything it touches. The nanometal absorbs organic and inorganic material alike, breaking it down, replicating it, repurposing it. Over 20,000 years, it turned itself from a buried mech into a self-evolving superstructure, which means this thing is on a clock to consume the entire planet. It's not a weapon anymore. It's a parasite wearing a city as a disguise. The human protagonist Haruo could briefly neural link with the city's systems, and that sounds empowering until you realize the city didn't care what he thought. His input was advisory at best. The city had its own agenda, and that agenda was become Godzilla, but better. This is the logical endpoint of the build a better weapon philosophy. You build a machine to kill a monster, and given enough time, the machine decides the most efficient path to victory is becoming the monster. Every other Mechagodzilla stays mechanical. This one is slowly going organic, which is, not ideal. But if body horror on a planetary scale bothers you, the next entry takes the nightmare concept completely literally. Nightmare Mechagodzilla. Every single Mechagodzilla we've covered so far has followed at least one rule. There's a pilot, or an AI, or a skeleton, or a city. There's a height. There's a weapon that fires a projectile, or generates a beam, or freezes something. Physics still apply. The machine exists in a space you can point to on a map. This one doesn't do any of that. In the IDW comic series, specifically the Godzilla Rulers of Earth run, there's a version of Mechagodzilla that goes so far off the rails it barely qualifies as the same concept anymore. We're talking about Mechagodzilla built and deployed by the Cryog, an alien race that decided Earth's monsters were a problem worth solving with increasingly unhinged engineering. Hey, what if the robot didn't have to play fair? Sure, sounds great. Build it. The Cryog didn't just build one either. They mass-produced Mechagodzillas and threw them at Earth like disposable weapons. These weren't prestige machines with careful engineering. They were brutal, efficient, and designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers rather than elegance. The weapons were standard Mechagodzilla fare: I-beams, missiles, the usual, but the strategy was pure nightmare logic. Why send one when you can send a dozen? Why fight fair when you can carpet bomb the planet with robots? Nobody on Earth was piloting them. The Cryog controlled the entire fleet remotely from their operations, treating each unit as expendable. I don't know what to tell you. And that's That's the arc. We started with aliens bolting laser cannons onto a metal suit in 1974 and ended here, at an alien race mass-producing disposable Mechagodzillas like they're running a factory line. From space titanium to assembly line war machines. From remote controls to full-scale alien invasion fleets. Somewhere in the comics, Mechagodzilla stopped being a special weapon and became a swarm. Which is, you know, not ideal for the rest of us. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.